Alrighty, so the first kind of factoring that we can do is finding a GCF. A lot of times if it looks crazy and there's nothing else we can do, you just look to see if all the terms have something in common, the greatest common factor. So first you'll look to see if the numbers all have a common factor. In this case, 8, 24, and 4 are all divisible by 4, so that'll be part of our GCF. Then you look at the letters. This one has an x, this one does not have an x, and this one has an x cubed. So they do not have any x's in common, so there will be no x's in our GCF. Then we look at the y's. This one has a y cubed, a y squared, and a y to the 5th. So the greatest number of y's they have in common is y squared. So this here is our GCF. Now when you do the GCF, you write it in the front of the parentheses, and then you write what's left in each term here. Each of these 3 terms, you write down what's left. So you'll have a minus and a plus between all 3 of those terms, and you'll write down what's left when you take out 4y squared. So we'll look at this one first. When we divide 8 by 4, because we're taking out a 4, we will have a 2 left. We did not take out any x's, so that x will be left. And we took out a y squared, and this was y cubed, so we will have a single y left. In the next term here, after the minus, 24 divided by 4 will leave us with a 6, so when we factor out the 4, we'll have a 6 left. We took out a y squared, and there are no x's, so there will be no letters left. This one, we took out a 4, so there will be no numbers left. We took out a y squared, so there will be a y to the 3rd left. And there were no x's to take out, so there still is an x cubed. So that's the answer when factoring out the GCF. Number 2 here, this is a difference of 2 squares. 2 perfect squares, 4 and 49, and the x is squared. And then we've got a subtraction sign, which means this is a difference of 2 squares. So when you factor this, you know it's going to factor into 2 sets of parentheses. To find the first number here in the front, you'll take the square root of whatever's in the front here, the square root of that. So that will be 2x. Then it's always 1 positive, 1 negative. And to find the second number, you will take the square root of the second number here. So that will be 7 and 7. So whenever it's a difference of 2 squares, your answers here should be the same except for a plus and a minus difference. Number 4 here has 4 terms. When we have 4 terms, that's when we do factoring by grouping. So that's when we put the dotted line down the middle, and we look for a GCF on both sides. So on this side, if I look at what these 2 have in common, 2 and 5 don't have any common factors, but they do have an x squared in common. When I factor out an x squared, I write down what's left with each term. So here, when I take out an x squared, I'll be left with a 2x. Then we subtract. Here, when I take out an x squared, I'm left with 5. So I'm left with 2x minus 5. On this side over here, we're going to look at what these 2 have in common. They don't have any x's in common, but 6 and 15 are both divisible by 3. So we'll have a common factor of 3. Whatever sign is out here, you take it out with that number. So in this case, we're going to take out a negative 3. So when I divide negative 6 by negative 3, I took out the negative, so it will be positive, and I'm left with a 2. I didn't take out the x, so I'm left with an x. Here, when I take out negative 3, the 15, it was a plus 15. I took out the negative, so it's going to be a minus, and 15 divided by 3 is 5. Which is good because we want these 2 to match here. And as long as they match, we're on the right track. So one of your factors is 2x minus 5. And then you look at what's left to figure out what will be your other factor. So on the left side, when I take out 2x minus 5, I'm left with x squared. And on the right side, when I take out 2x minus 5, I'm left with minus 3. And then you're done. Number 3 here, this is a trinomial with a equal to 1. So here we're just looking for 2 numbers that multiply together to get negative 45 and add together to get negative 4. In this case, that will be minus 9 and plus 5. Although it's minus 9 and plus 5, so then we go ahead and go straight into our factors here. So it'll be a minus 9 and a plus 5. And that's all. Over here, this is also trinomial, but here a is not 1, it's 3. So we have to use the long version of factoring. You can use slide and divide, or you can use grouping. I'm going to do it by grouping. So first thing is to take the 3 and multiply it by the -4. That will give us -12. That's the number we're going to look to find two numbers that multiply together to get. We're still going to look for two numbers that add together to get the middle one. But because of the 3 in the front, you got to put it with the -4 at the end. So here those two numbers will be +4 and -3. But you can't go straight to factoring like we did over here because of the number in the front. So what you have to do is we're going to do grouping. So we're going to bring the 3x squared down, keep it the same. Bring the -4 down, keep it the same. And then these two numbers that we just found, we're going to split up this 1x into those two. So +4x minus 3x. And once you do this, you now have 4 terms, so you'll do factoring like by grouping, just like we did up here. So on the left-hand side, we'll look for a common factor. That's just x. That will leave us with 3x plus 4. When we take an x out of both of these terms, we'll have 3x plus 4 left. Over here on this side, these don't really have a common factor except for the negative. So if they don't have a common factor, you can pull out a 1. So in this case, we'll pull out a -1. So that'll just take out the negative out of each of these and leave us with 3x plus 4, which is good because these should match if we're doing it right. So one of our factors is 3x plus 4, and then whatever's left here is our other factor, x minus 1. And then you're done. And the last kind is a sum or difference of cubes. So you can do it with a plus or a minus, and all you need to do is use your formula. So you got to figure out what a is, and you got to figure out what b is. To figure out a, you do the cube root of the number in the front. So the cube root of x cubed will just be x, because those cancel. And then to find b, you do the cube root of the thing in the back. So that would be the cube root of 8. You can use your calculator to find that, and you'll get 2. So then all you got to do is pick which formula you're going to use. This one had a plus sign, so we're going to use the plus formula. And then you just write down what this formula says. So it says that it factors into this. So it'll be parentheses a, which is x, plus b, which is 2. Parentheses a squared, so x squared, minus a times b, x times 2, plus b squared, so 2 squared. Now, a lot of times we will write this a little differently, so we'll have x squared minus 2x, because usually we write 2 times x instead of x times 2, and then plus 4. But that would be your final answer.